It is the Friday night and it is a transfer roundup show. I'm Neil Atkinson, I've got Adam Melia, I've got Mo Stewart, I've got Jake Nolan, and we are going to be asking the question, why aren't the transfers to round up? And Mo Stewart, Liverpool have got to get their acting in gear to a degree. I do feel as though in a couple of areas it wouldn't really matter before the Chelsea game now. I think they've almost gone beyond a certain cut-off point in a certain window, but I'm not that entertained by that. I don't want to see Joe Mata play football again anytime soon. There's an issue as to what they're doing left-hand side of the centre-half. There's little bits and pieces around the fact that some people don't like Curtis Jones at 6. I think it might work, but it's now or never.
I mean, they've committed to it either way. I think the cut-off point you mentioned for me was Singapore. The fact that I think it was almost like a couple of days beforehand we did a show. It was like, if this Lavia deal isn't concluded by that point, then the chances are they're going to have to solve the 6 problem in-house. And I suspected there would be Curtis based on who was there and the fact that some of the other guys who are potentials would maybe be needed other places, like McAllister, or weren't ready, like Thiago and Bajcetic. So it was almost a natural candidate. And it's not without its teething problems. I think that's fair to say off basis of the games we've seen so far. But then how much do you take off the games we've seen so far? I think we're at the stage of the world where we have to kind of trust that the work that they're doing, which we aren't seeing, is good and good enough. And, I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see, but let's talk about the links, Adam. I'm of the view they're just not sure if Lavia is worth the money, and that's the reason why they're oscillating. But they put themselves in a position where they maybe don't get to be that picky. It looks like Trindade is a real thing. They want a left-hand sided centre-back. That looks like a real thing as well. They were hanging on for Colwill. That's disappeared. Van der Ven, as we record this, looks like he's going to Tottenham. They're running out of candidates there. Mickey Longlegs is not to be amongst us.
It's a shame, that, isn't it?
It is a shame.
More for the nickname more than anything else.
Yeah. Although we can say it when we play them. It's got that to recommend it at least. I just feel a little bit like you're not in a position to be able to be picky if you're also going to be slow.
I'd forgotten about Colwill, but you've just reminded me that I partly blame you for the whole Colwill thing.
I know you do.
The club created their own reality. I said this on this show a few weeks ago. It never felt like that was the reality that I was living in. You decided that you were living in it a bit. So yeah, you have to claim an assist in that particular one.
It's all right if you want to. Honestly, I often will create my own reality, but I frankly do not control who Liverpool do or don't buy.
No, I mean, yeah. So to be serious, I suppose.
Although the Trindade thing makes me think I might.
Yeah. I think essentially, I don't mind when everybody gets angry, because I'm always a bit angry about this. I've been angry for a year. I think that we should have been angry for a year, really, because last year was the big cock up, basically. So I think that I sense anger. I've got my ear to the ground, and I sense that the anger is happening now, and I think that is fair enough. Whenever the anger happens is fair enough, because if we're now, I also feel a little bit like if we now sign Lavia. As timings are funny, aren't they? If we now sign Lavia, are we expected to be happy with that? Because I think when Fabinho and Henderson left or announced they were leaving a few weeks ago, everybody was in agreement. We can't just sign Lavia, and now this has dragged on so much that I'm almost like, God. Well, I'll be relieved at least, and on the verge of happy.
I'm fine with the idea of them getting Andre and it being one where he's not coming till January because he's completing the season with his current club. But I think
we're leaving ourselves with way too much work to do.
Yeah,
but if it's a transfer game.
That's my thing is, and also because I want 2 centre halves. Like, I'm more interested in the fact that I want 2 defenders at this point. I'll be all right if there's just one, but ultimately I do feel a little bit like I'd quite like there to be a pair of defenders that are coming in, and that's Jake. Where
just don't say it. It's happening.
Well, that's where you've got to they've got to start motoring. Although again, have you seen the tweet that West Ham have put on a transfer? There's a transfer website supposedly where you say what your vacancies are.
No way.
West Ham have tweeted 7 vacant positions.
Like a total jobs.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll find the tweet whilst you're talking. Like, my other point on this is always no one else is sorted. But then if Mickey Longlegs is going to Tottenham, then Tottenham are beginning the process of getting sorted. United might have spent a ton of money on a centre forward who's barely kicked a ball in senior football, but they've spent it and they're buying him. Do you know what I mean? I'm not looking at anyone else thinking, Christ, I wish I was them. Really.
Arsenal have done all right.
Arsenal, I think have worked out what they're doing and just gone and done it.
Yeah.
But everyone, there's a number of other sides. What I mean here is, like, Chelsea still don't look. They've paid 25 million for Brighton's fucking backup goalkeeper for reasons that I think should actually be going in front of some sort of panel. I'll find the West Ham thing at the minute it's just you've got to get cracking here. You've got to get cracking.
Definitely, I think we're probably in danger of being football minge bags at the moment, aren't we? You could say, and I think we're probably paying the price for learning our fate in the Europa League a little bit late, I think, and then obviously that we've had the knock on of the other two fellas in midfield leaving that we probably didn't account for. Maybe we account for one, we didn't account for both.
Or we accounted for Thiago.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like it's an easy fix, like just get us in the room for the day, we'll box with the boys, but like it does feel to me like if we just get our lad in from the hard knock from Brazil, and then I would love, similar to you, I would love a defender who can do a little bit of full back. It doesn't, for me at this point, it doesn't matter which side it is. Allowing that means that Sen can go midfield and all the lads who play FIFA can shut up then. You know what I mean? And then he can do a little bit of both.
You read that tweet.
Absolutely brilliant.
West Ham have advertised their need for a left back, centre back, defensive midfielder, centre midfielder, attacking midfielder, winger, and striker on a popular transfer forum.
I'm glad to know that's not just me via Sefton Park Rangers.
So who do they sound with then? What's left?
Is it like Indeed? Can people go on and review West Ham? Oh, work for them. No,
I mean, that's literally everyone except the goalkeeper.
Their listed budget for every position is up to 20 million, but they're also exploring the loan market. So I
Absolutely
want to know what
amazing.
this website is, and have we got an account on it? At this point, have the Reds sorted out an account on there? Do they need to get on there and then it all happens faster?
Yeah. Can you play defensive midfield anywhere across the back three and then play in all sorts of mad positions up front as well? That's what we'll be advertising for.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it looks like we're playing at the moment. That's absolutely wild.
It's absolutely brilliant that that's what West Ham are doing.
I don't want to fill in an application form. Can I just drop the CV in?
Yeah.
This is who the club is. You know, I'm not filling in particular forms.
I think they've called on Lavia. And I think they've called on Lavia because they're not sure of the full amount. I think they might have called on Lavia because of the wider circumstance. Maybe I'm wrong.
Do you think it's because he passed the ball to one of our lads at the end of the season?
Maybe someone watched that video
That
back.
thing just keeps going back in my head.
Maybe that's the only thing that John Henry's seen of him is like, this guy?
Yeah.
Really?
If it's not Lavia, who do you think it should be?
That's a big question. I think part of the reason why, he is part of the reason why I think we've gone cold, but so much of this transfer market we've seen, it's all about kind of using one player as a yardstick for another. Like we've seen it with Rice and Caicedo, and for Liverpool, the yardstick for Lavia is Bajcetic. Like he's a year younger, and they're probably higher on him than they are on Lavia. So it's like, why are we going to pay 50 million for a guy to compete with and maybe overtake? And maybe that's their stance, but they can't really get into this now because, as you say, they aren't in a situation where they can afford to play poker anymore. And I mean, you have to look at Southampton as well. Like, they've just sold Livramento to Newcastle for 40 million. They were like 50 all summer, and now they've sold him for 40. So you can understand Liverpool thinking, well, maybe there's something in there. But the problem is, like I said a few months ago, if you've got a club and they're selling lots of players, get in there first. You're going to get the best deal if you do it first. Once you're in the second or third deal, then you're relying on stuff. And now that Southampton have given Newcastle a 10 mil discount, they're absolutely not going to do it for Liverpool. So
isn't that part of the situation where they feel like they were waiting to see if one midfielder would go because they wanted the two attacking ones because they didn't think it was going to happen with Fabinho? If you see what I mean?
Yes.
I think that's where, if insofar as I do have some sympathy, I feel a bit like they had a plan, which was Thiago was probably going to go. Henderson and Fabinho were going to stay and they were going to do Lavia, and that was what they were going to do. But like, for instance, they spent 60 million on Szoboszlai because they wanted Szoboszlai, and at that moment they could have gone and bought Lavia or any one of a number of other midfielders, if you see what I mean.
I think it was always at least partly part of the plan. I'm sort of not having the excuse that they weren't expecting Fabinho or Henderson to go because we all
part of what plan?
The plan of during last season, this midfield's got no legs. Let's get rid of some of these no leg midfielders.
The plan was that they were going to
get some other midfielders in.
Thiago would go.
No, we talked about it.
That was happening in June.
So Neil, we talked about it on a show, and so I'm not disagreeing with you because you were saying that there's a chance that Henderson goes, and I was at the time saying I don't think that's right. I think Thiago was the most likely. But what I'm saying is they were all there. I think they were all for sale, and so they can't now. Although maybe there is, I think there's probably a bit where they weren't expecting. Probably Henderson is the one they weren't.
I think they weren't expecting Fabinho.
Maybe they weren't expecting Fabinho.
I think, for instance, if the transfer fee they paid for Fabinho, I think is dead interesting. I think if they'd come in at 25 million, Liverpool had just gone no. I think 40 is the point where Liverpool are going, we can't afford not to do this.
I'm just not really having a crying about it and
no,
saying
I'm
not saying you are. I'm saying that is the line. That's this summer's excuse. It's becoming this summer's excuse. We weren't expecting them to go. They were for sale. Anybody would have sold them last season, including the people at the club, obviously. So we can't really now say, oh shit, because the transfer window's open. Go and sign some players. And I think the glacier speed in which they move. I can't think of midfielders. I was just trying to think of them when he said it. But in terms of defenders, there's the lad who Mo will tell me his name that Leipzig have just replaced Gvardiol with.
Castello Lucchese.
He's not gone yet.
So, but why are we not in for him? And
No, I'm fine with that. But he's not gone. They can't agree a fee. Leon won 40 million. Leipzig are holding out to pay 30.
Say his name again.
Castello Lucchese.
That sounds great.
So there's
doesn't it?
the lad. So on that one, I can take that point in terms of the fact that there's the lad who's gone from Fiorentina to Brighton, who plays left hand side, where Brighton have moved on from Colwell earlier.
This is what I'm
got
saying.
Got him in, and so they've settled on him.
So if we're in for Andre, the fella, I can't remember his surname. I'll call him Andre Trindade. That says to me that we're doing the thing where we're going to the stage before. We're not waiting for them to play for Southampton for a year. We're saying, well, we're going to go to Lille. We're going to go to South America. So in that case, I think we need to be a little bit more alive to this sort of thing. Which maybe he hasn't signed for Leipzig, but he's probably going to, and I don't see us linked.
Yeah, no, I think he's one. I think there's other ones out there as well. I've done a video on them this week of everyone who basically plays left-hand side and centre-half in Europe, who's of a certain age and profile that Liverpool could go for.
That Laporte shout was wild, by the way.
Supposedly they've not Crystal Palace knocked back paying 35 million for him. 35 million.
I still don't believe Man City would sell us anything.
I don't think it would sell us anything, but I think that 35 million is worth pointing out.
For Laporte?
Yeah.
Oof.
I know.
We're just
You
not
have to
linked
tell
to
me, mate.
I don't think I've seen us linked to any defender since we were linked to Colwell, so we need to get our heads out of that reality.
Yeah.
Neil's reality.
So who's you got a name that you think that they should think about?
Well, the mad shout that I said, because we were talking before off air, particularly the other players in the Premier League. I was thinking about maybe we should have got Jack Decore last year. The mad shout is Andre Onana from Everton.
If you want to talk about people who won't do business with us.
Sorry, Amadou Onana. Yes. Well,
This Mo's one to watch.
but
I quite like him actually.
But they don't like doing deals with us, but they have done deals with us, and I don't.
Got Nick Barmby written all over him.
I think it might be one where late,
I'm not
late,
against
late
it,
in the
trust me.
late in the window, when they've already lost the first two games and war's already started to come down, and players are looking around over their shoulder.
Got Fulham at home first week.
I see a theatre of dreams in his future, Mo.
I mean,
If he plays for Everton and he's good.
Genuinely though, as a player.
Go on, a theatre of dreams in his future.
I'm sorry, I almost let that one go, and I shouldn't have. You're right. As a player, I remember when he first started playing for Everton and thinking there's definitely something in there. At that point, we were still fishing in the higher pond, so I was thinking, well, okay, we better have someone good if we've let this guy go. And we didn't. So, and obviously the deal's not necessarily easy to do, and I think
You wouldn't have to move house.
You might have to get some more security in his current house.
Yeah, but I mean, as I'm saying, look, they're going to Brazil and cutting out the middleman, which I think is smart, but maybe that's because they are easier to deal with. And that traditionally always wasn't the case with like third-party rules and all that kind of stuff. Maybe now they're thinking, well, we have to try and change our ways. And I don't know. I just think...
So, let me give you the new indeed. Would you have Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Would you have?
Nah.
I'd have the new Pierre. I'd have the new Højbjerg.
I think too many teams have worked him out.
You'd have the
But
new one.
I'd have him.
I'm trying to think of the new one is. Would you have him or the new one?
I would have liked him 3 years ago, but I'd certainly like him now and the new one. I think he's very much in the Liverpool mould as well.
We just need some. We need some midfield snide, don't we? I'm not sure. So this is the thing where I'm sort of on a bit on the club side. If they have cooled on Lavia, is if we were taking it completely cold, he's not the player we're saying we need.
Is Curtis Jones playing Boston training every day as well and coming back off the back of playing brilliantly in a tournament, playing number 6, and then they just go, do you know what? He's doing all right there,
seeing he's not the big see you next Tuesday that we were talking about before, is he? He's not he's not midfield snide. And I think, as Neil keeps saying, he's not like the building's on fire defensive midfielder.
The only thing that worries me about Curtis, genuinely the only thing, is the pessimism. Like, he doesn't play holding mid, like it's all about to go to shit.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for having the
Which
mode.
is linked to snide, so you're going to boot someone up in the air.
Because it's all about to go to shit.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that I think Curtis has got. Everything else I genuinely do, and I think that what he hasn't got can be worked on. My thing is...
Feels like you could just tell him that.
He's just
just kick people people more, please. I could do that.
But I think he's so optimistic and so front foot, and he backs himself, and we want him to back himself. But that's what.
If you stick him next to that lunatic that we're going to buy from Brazil, does that not give you everything you want in the midfield too?
It gives you a little bit of what you want in the midfield too, but then you're back to going, well, we'll be changing the shape again. Like my bigger concern at the minute, more than even the buying or the selling of the players, is if we think we're playing this shape against really good sides, fuck me, we're going to have to play it better. And I don't care who we buy or don't buy for that. Like, I think that's an attitude thing, and I think it's on also where the footballers think they are on the pitch thing. Yeah. Like, it's mad. The second goal they conceded against Bayern, the mad thing about it is, where the fucking hell does Trent think he is? Like, I love him to pieces, think he's an unbelievably talented footballer, but he's literally playing like Henderson's behind him. Like, go ahead, Jordan, can you pick him up for? Oh shit!
We are in an interesting moment, I think, with there's excitement based on opportunity, based on there being some spaces, I think. But there's also, I think, the clanging chimes of doom, to quote Band-Aid, which is a bit frightening, really, because it could go well, and I think we are about to find out quite soon whether it will or not. But it really might not go well, and there's probably nothing we can do transfer-wise right now that's going to turn the start of the season into something different to what it is.
Yeah, I think that's sort of my point. But I've also got a little I'd just quite like to believe that they've got an approach to this when they're coming up against really good players, where they just need to keep it tight for 20.
Yeah.
And they do a little bit of that against Bayern, but it mostly involves going back and playing 4-3-3. In essence, when they don't have the ball, and they just fall back into that shape.
That'll happen a lot, though. I think that'll happen a lot.
I think it will, but I think that's not quite the same as what happens then when you get more expansive and then you're still up against really good players. It's just that now you're not set in shape.
Yeah.
So, like, what Gnabry does to Matip, Gnabry could do to Konate.
Yeah.
Players like Gnabry, that's literally the job. Their job is to be brilliant and take really good defenders, which I don't think Matip is anymore, but to take really good defenders and make them look crap.
I think a big part of this personally, and it's literally from nothing but popping from my own brain, is I think they've watched Arsenal last season, the fact they haven't played in the Champions League. They've watched that they've blown away teams and covered up a multitude of sins in doing so. And they've gone, do you know what, with the personnel that we've got where we are right now, we can probably do the same. And I think
that's fair. I actually think that's fair. Like, I agree with them. Yeah. It's just that occasionally you've got to go to Chelsea, you've got to go to Newcastle, you've got to play Man United.
And that's probably why we won't win the league, but I think we'll be fun watching us.
I can see why they just look to other teams doing it, particularly Arsenal, because what it does do really well is it lets your wide players go one-on-one. Because if the inverted fullback comes inside, then the other winger follows him in. There's all that space. And who's our wide forward? Mo Salah. We'd quite love him to be one-on-one every now and again. So I can see why that was the machination.
And it works at the end of the season.
I think Arsenal also had a lot of nice momentum. They had a kind start and nice momentum. I'm concerned about the side of our mentality, which I saw last season, if things don't start well, and I suspect they might not. So that's my kind of clanging chimes of doom worry.
My clanging chimes of doom worry is as much about us as well. Like, we all lose our fucking minds again because it doesn't start well. And I think we all need to breathe in. Like, I'm still very much I haven't changed in my position of a point at Chelsea's fine, a point at Newcastle's fine. In the grand scheme of things,
I'm not sure it's going to happen there.
No, but nor am I, and I don't quite see how a game of football breaks out between us and Chelsea that can end in a point. Like, that's my worry.
I can see us battering one of them and also getting battered by one of them, and it doesn't really matter which way it's going away. But I think I could see that'd be a good bet. Who does the bets? Phil?
Phil does the bets.
Phil does the bets. I'll get on Phil after this.
Anyone you want to buy?
Everyone.
Of the defenders who we've been linked with so far,
surely.
Yeah, I think he's the top of the one. But I don't know whether it's true that the release clause is there, because if it is, then surely that's just a conversation of saying we need someone, let's go. There's no haggling when there's a release clause. That should be.
We seem to be able to sign players with release clauses.
Exactly. And I mean, that might be low-hanging fruit on a certain aspect, but it gets it done. I think he's the kind of person who will come in and be able to improve us, be able to cover at least two positions, and in a way that just gives us a little bit more leeway, because that's what we're going to need when we're doing this new stuff. Because if you think about it, there's always going to be growing pains when you think about last season where we were integrating a kind of a new attacking system. It took a while. It was ugly for a while, and there was new players who weren't getting it, and it affected everything else. This is kind of the same. Now we've got a bit of a head start at the end of last season, but we're still not perfect. And you're talking about the goal against Bayern Munich. That's the point where it's at its most weak, when you're going from having the ball to not having the ball, and you're still not sure about where you're supposed to be here and there and when and what. but this is the Premier League, and you can't really afford to take too long to get used to it. So our tactic is, while we're getting used to it, we're just going to score a shitload of goals. And that part of the team looks like it's able to do that. Like, that is one thing that this pre-season has had hammered home. I think we'll score a lot more goals than we did last season. How many more, and whether or not it will be enough?
I think the problem last season was they didn't score enough goals. I think it ended up a lot of people focusing on what was happening the other way, and I think that the two things were interconnected. But they just didn't score enough goals. They didn't score enough games. They didn't score enough games, and they didn't score enough goals, and they didn't spread the goals they did score around enough. There's no point scoring 16 goals in 2 home games and winning them on an average of 8-0, and then not being able to score 2 goals against Leeds when you could just done with putting that game to bed.
And
as an
you know,
example.
like managers always say, or strikers always say, it doesn't matter if you're not scoring goals. It matters when you're not getting the chances. That's when it's really bad. Well, after having a season of watching us get loads of chances and miss them all, I disagree. I feel like that was worse.
There was a mentality shift, though.
Yeah,
I think there's a mentality problem.
But also we didn't create. Bournemouth's away is a good example of one where we turned up. We didn't create that much.
No.
For us, we have a lot of control. Van Dijk does the mad thing with the header back across goal. Carvalho should score, but we don't actually create anything else, and we don't create anything else when we're 1-0 down.
You can see that's the worst. That's the worst game of the season, the most memorable game of the season, because you can see the mentality shift in that game. You can see them deciding to stop or whatever it is that they do. And the good things that we did in the last 9 games of the season was running around and fighting more. And it was a mentality shift. And as I say, I would like to see that that's been adjusted. I suppose it's linked to the transfer market. I would like to see us being more serious in the transfer market too, to prove that we're moving in the right direction, because I think that makes the players act more seriously.
I think they're going to run around and do the fight thing at the start of the season. They are going to run around and do the fight thing.
Well, I mean, if you think about the start of this new system, it was that Arsenal game. They just got angry, and you could tell that they were just getting really pissed off. It's like, I'm not having another game that's going the same way. Fuck this. Let's do this now.
Exactly, but they should be angry. I mean, Neil, you mentioned the fans before, but the fans have got a reason to lose their shit, because we were among the best teams in Europe, and we've watched it very predictably be frittered away by not strengthening, not doing what we needed to do, what everybody knew we needed to do in the transfer market. So if there's limited patience, that's why. And I think it's probably, as I say, a season too late to have fixed it in a non-transitionary way. So we'll just have to see what happens this season and hope it's not a disaster.
No, I'm very much of I'm not of the non-transitionary way. I think we need to get into the mindset of, at some point we can kick for home. We just need to position ourselves to kick for home. Yeah. And that's I'm very into. It can be a bit mad, it can be a bit wild, it can be a bit unpredictable, and then suddenly it flips and it's the opposite of that. It's very predictable because things have been sorted out and you've still got this array of attack and talent and other stuff's come together. That's why I'm still alright. If they buy the players they need to buy now, there's still loads of time to get settled and get set for the business point of the season. I'll say again, City were played 14, 32 points, and they were played 28, 64 points. I think where we're going to fuck ourselves is if we just go back to thinking, if you don't get 100 points, you're fucked. There's loads of ways to get to 90 points, which means it's like, even at the end of the season, we end the season better than City started it, and we didn't end it that well. Fuck's sake.
City do what they need to do to win the league. I still think the only way to win the league against City is to start really strongly. So I'm already sort of thinking we're probably not going to win the league this season, because I don't see us starting strong enough to kill their hearts. You know what I mean? Like, that's still the only way I think you do it. City were always winning the league last season. Despite the poor start, it was obvious.
I think that, but I think that if we'd have been where Arsenal were, we'd have won it.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have been where Arsenal were.
But that's the point. No, but the point is though,
City wouldn't have started as poorly if we'd been challenging them.
I think that City were getting their act together loads last season. I think it's actually underrated how hard City found the start of the season. I think City were a bit of a show. I remember going to Edinburgh on the Isle, going, City are nowhere near it. Basically, Rodri is carrying City on his back.
4-4-2 saved them.
And I think they just sorted a couple of things out. But I think City were finding it hard. I didn't find it hard this season.
No, it probably is that they knew that the team they were competing against weren't the standard the Liverpool team they had previously been competing against were.
But they still wouldn't have thought that Arsenal would win 9 in the first 10. So
I just think they were sort of sanguine with it, and they were like, well, we'll probably still win the league. We'll see what happens at Christmas. And at Christmas they thought, yeah, we can still do that, and then they did. And I thought they'd win the league by 10 points at Christmas, and I don't know how many they won it by in the end, but they probably could have. I don't know.
But also I think obsessing about what City are doing or not doing is going to fuck us.
Yeah.
So
they're not really our problem this season, I don't think.
And yeah, Jay, and it's also going to drive us mad because it's why, for instance, going and getting a draw at Stamford, or more accurately, going and getting a draw at Newcastle, have loads of people going, oh well, that's that fucked.
No, but you've got I don't like conceding the league in summer.
But I'm not conceding the league in summer. I'm doing quite the opposite. But I'm saying you've got to build a season. In 18-19, we don't in the summer. We're not sat here thinking, you know what we're going to do is we're going to be able to absolutely properly go toe to toe with City all the way through the campaign. Yeah. But we grow to the point that we believe that we can, and then we kick on from there. My worry is by absolutely turning everything into you're fucked if you don't pass these barriers. What happens is we all believe it, they all believe it. That's what happens last season.
I know.
They kick off against Palace like if we don't win this we're fucked. And then they don't win it and then they go, well, we're fucked then.
I still think it's true though. I still think that's the only way to beat City, to win the league.
The dressing room are thinking like you are, Neil, and I think that will hopefully guard against the way that they fell off the cliff last season, because like you say, that was a big thing. Then when they realised how early on that they weren't going to get what they really wanted, and they had all that season to go, and it just kind of tailspinned. And because the sites, I do believe, are a little bit lower, like I still think that they believe that they're good enough to win the league, but they're not going out, like you say, with every game thinking this is part 1 of the league, this is part 2. They're not doing, what was it said, Project 37 or 38 or whatever the fuck
we
it
haven't
was.
just lost the league by 1 point or goal difference or something, so it is more realistic to say we're not definitely going to be
they'll be able to ride the bumps easier, I think. That's what I mean.
I think not seeing necessarily like why City are really good is that when there are bumps, they don't go, oh fuck, we're bumped, it's fucked. They instead go, it's alright, we'll just fix this in the next game. I think what we turned into last season, which is the opposite of what we did in 18-19 and 19-20, was we last season got ourselves into a mindset of one little thing goes wrong, everything's fucked, and everyone was doing that. We were doing that off the pitch, it was happening on the pitch, I think it was happening in the dugout, and I think that so you can be right, but if you're right, it doesn't help.
No, I know. Well, I'm not. I'm. As I say, I know I'm being pessimistic.
No, it's not so much. I don't think it's a matter of being pessimistic or optimistic. I think you can be pessimistic and still say you're trying to build a season game by game. I think if you decide that basically you drop, like if we take 8 points from the first 4, I think we're absolutely fine vis-a-vis winning the league as long as the 2 draws are in the 2 away games.
I think on paper, I've just seen how badly things can spiral, and that's what I would like. I'm saying at some point things won't be perfect, and I suspect it might be the start of the season. I would like to see us have a better mentality around those things, which I think you're saying.
I think more than anything,
that's the main thing I'm saying. Whereas what you're saying is quite the opposite.
Well, the funny thing about that, sorry to cut in there, Jake.
I don't know.
Quite the opposite.
I thought we were in agreement there.
No, we were in agreement on the core point. But your point is, well, it's all fucked if they don't get the results in the first 4.
No, I think it likely is already fucked, and I'm annoyed at having to write a title challenge off in summer.
Yeah, I'm still right and you're wrong. Go on.
I was just going to say, I think there's plenty to be optimistic for from a Liverpool point of view, even more so if we signed a couple of players where we know that we need it. But more than anything, I think there's probably more things to be optimistic with City, because human nature would tell you that if they're ever going to drop mentality, it's after winning a treble.
All right. Okay, that'll do us.